In this video, we will discuss about what is meant by hypothesis testing. Hypothesis testing is a process to reject or fail to reject a statistical hypothesis. So, in normal abbreviation, what is meant by hypothesis is like a claim, someone claiming something. For example, to understand better, let's imagine we all know Earth is in round shape, right? Someone comes and that person proposing, no, Earth is not in round shape, Earth is in flat. So we need to determine which one is true, right? In statistics, it is very hard to do. Not only in statistics, in normal life also it is very hard to determine the truth. We can't always find the actual truth. We always find the data points to conclude that our assumption was true. In this scenario, we will call, in hypothesis testing, we have two ways of representation of our belief or our observations. First one is null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is what is our current belief or current situation. Earth is in round shape. That is our null hypothesis in this context. In statistics, we define null hypothesis is as H0. Okay? And another side, someone comes and proposed, no, Earth is in not round shape, Earth is in flat shape. That means it is quite opposite to null hypothesis. We will call it as alternate hypothesis. So in our case, alternate hypothesis, HA, some people note as H1 also. HA is, in this case, Earth is not in round shape. It is quite opposite to the null hypothesis, that is H0. In statistics, hypothesis testing, while we perform, always H0 is opposite to HA. Okay? So, in hypothesis testing, while doing this, we always assume that null hypothesis is true, and we will test our null hypothesis to reject or fail to reject. For example, if we are able to reject null hypothesis, means we are accepting alternate hypothesis. If we are failed to reject our null hypothesis, means we are stick to our assumption. Our assumption was right. Our assumption is right. Okay? So in hypothesis testing, we always test null hypothesis. We always try to reject or fail to reject null hypothesis. Okay, this is overall concept of null hypothesis testing. It is like giving a judgment in courts. Basically, we can't determine the actual truth, but lawyers or court, what it will do, it will try to find out all the data points to make sure that victim that victim done the crime or not. Judge will assume that victim is innocent. It's called, then judge treated victim as null hypothesis. Victim is innocent. That is our null hypothesis. Alternate hypothesis will be victim is not innocent. So lawyers will prove them comes with data points, and based on the data points, judge will take a decision. In our null hypothesis testing also, we always will have some threshold point to determine our null hypothesis. That is, in statistics we call it as statistical significance level. Statistical significance. That means after performing our analysis, statistical analysis, we comes to one value. We will always compare this value against our threshold. That is called statistical significance level. We will verify with our statistical significance level. So this statistical significance level will vary from situation to situation. Okay? For example, you went to one doctor. The doctor will examine you, and he or she will determine whether you are suffering with some disease or not based on some significance level. If you are suffering with sugar, BP, or whatever it may be, doctor will check with the threshold value whether you crossed or below that mark, and doctor will suggest the prescription, right? In the same manner, in this case, doctor assumes the patient doesn't have any disease. That is our null hypothesis. So alternate hypothesis will be the patient suffering with some disease, right? Alternate hypothesis will be the patient have the disease. Okay, so the work of doctor is to examine which one to prove, which one is true, null hypothesis or alternate hypothesis. This is a basic theory concept of hypothesis testing. I will repeat one more time. Hypothesis testing is a process to reject or fail to reject statistical hypothesis. We will have two types of hypothesis. One is null hypothesis, second one is alternate hypothesis. Always null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis are opposite. That means if null hypothesis says earth is in round shape, alternate hypothesis says earth is not in round shape. In some cases also we can use less than or greater than also. And we always test null hypothesis only. So we will try to reject the null hypothesis, or we try to fail to reject the null hypothesis. If we are rejecting the null hypothesis, means we are accepting alternate hypothesis. If we are fail to reject null hypothesis, means we are stick with our assumption that represents our null hypothesis is true. Understood? In next video we will go to some examples. We will try to understand explore more on this. Okay.